The window pane was spotless, but Samantha Wells wiped it one more time anyway, 3 weeks into this job, and she still couldn't shake the feeling that one mistake would cost her everything. The Pellegrini mansion in Connecticut was unlike anywhere she had ever worked. High ceilings, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than her entire life savings. Every surface gleamed. Every corner held something expensive and untouchable. She stood on the second-floor landing, cloth in one hand, spray bottle in the other, looking out over the back gardens. July heat pressed against the glass, making the air shimmer above the perfectly manicured lawn. The pool stretched out below, an infinity edge that seemed to pour directly into the horizon. Blue water, undisturbed, reflecting the cloudless sky. Samantha had been hired through an agency after a rushed phone interview and a background check that felt more invasive than anything she had experienced before. They asked about her family, her education, her previous employers. They asked why she left her last job. She told them the truth. The family moved overseas. They nodded and handed her a contract with a salary that made her hands shake. The head of household, Mrs. Wait. No, wrong name. Old habit. A phantom syllable that didn't belong here. Better not to even think about it. Better not to think about this place. Better not to think. Rules. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't ask questions. Keep your head down and do your work. Samantha had followed those rules perfectly. She had seen Anthony Pellegrini exactly 4 times in 3 weeks. Each encounter lasted less than 30 seconds. He moved through the house like a storm, dark and focused, surrounded by men in tailored suits who spoke in low voices. He never looked at her. Not once. She was invisible. That was fine. She preferred it that way. She squeezed the cloth over the bucket, watching dirty water drip between her fingers. Her back ached from scrubbing baseboards all morning. Her knees were sore. But the work was steady, the pay was good, and she could finally afford to help her younger sister Ashley with college expenses. Movement caught her eye. Down by the pool, a small figure emerged from the side door of the house. Luca. The boy was 5 years old, dark hair that never seemed to stay combed, and eyes that always looked a little sad. Samantha had only spoken to him twice. Once when he asked her name. Once when he asked if she knew how to make pancakes. Both times, his voice had been so quiet she almost missed the words. She watched him walk toward the pool. He wore swim trunks and a t-shirt with a cartoon character she didn't recognize. His steps were careful, measured. He looked around as if checking to see if anyone was watching. Samantha's stomach tightened. Mrs. Brennan had been very clear during orientation. Luca was never allowed near the pool without supervision. Never. Mr. Pellegrini's orders. The boy couldn't swim. Not yet. He was too afraid of the water. Something about his mother. Samantha hadn't asked for details. She set down the spray bottle and moved closer to the window. Luca reached the edge of the pool and sat down, dangling his legs over the side. His feet didn't reach the water. He kicked them back and forth, staring down at his reflection. Maybe he would just sit there. Maybe someone would come get him soon. Samantha glanced down the hallway. Empty. She could go find Mrs. Brennan. But by the time she explained, someone else would have already handled it. She turned back to the window. Luca was standing now, walking along the edge of the pool, his arms stretched out for balance. The tiles were wet from the automatic sprinkler system that ran every morning. Samantha's breath caught. Everything happened in seconds. Luca's foot slipped. His arms windmilled. His mouth opened in a silent cry. Then he was falling, body twisting, disappearing into the deep end with a splash that seemed too loud and too quiet at the same time. Samantha didn't think. She dropped the cloth and ran. Her sneakers pounded against the hardwood floor as she sprinted down the hallway. She took the stairs 3 at a time, nearly losing her balance on the landing. The back door was locked. She fumbled with the deadbolt, cursing under her breath. Finally, it gave. She burst outside into the heat. The pool was 30 yards away. Her legs burned as she crossed the lawn. She could see the water now, ripples spreading from where Luca had gone under. No sign of him at the surface. She didn't slow down, didn't stop to kick off her shoes or strip off her uniform. She hit the edge of the pool at full speed, and dove in. Uniform dress and all. The water swallowed her, cold and shocking after the July heat. She opened her eyes underwater, ignoring the sting of chlorine. There. Luca was sinking, arms flailing weakly, eyes wide with panic. He was already 6 feet down in the 12-foot deep end. His shirt billowed around him like a parachute. Samantha kicked hard, pulling herself down with strong, practiced strokes. Years of competitive swimming in high school roared back into her muscle memory. She reached Luca in seconds, wrapping one arm around his chest and pulling him against her. He fought her instinctively, arms striking her face, but she held tight. She kicked toward the surface, lungs burning. Her dress dragged against her legs, heavy and restrictive. Luca's weight pulled at her arm. For a moment, she wondered if they would both drown. Then her head broke the surface, and air rushed into her lungs. Luca coughed and gasped, water spilling from his mouth. Samantha swam toward the shallow end, keeping his head above water. Her arms shook. Her legs felt like lead, but she didn't stop until her feet touched the pool floor. She carried Luca up the steps and onto the hot concrete, setting him down gently. He coughed again, harder this time, expelling water from his lungs. His face was pale, lips tinged blue, but he was breathing. He was alive. Samantha knelt beside him, hands on his shoulders. "You're okay. Just breathe." Slow breaths. Luca's eyes focused on her, wide and terrified. Tears mixed with pool water on his cheeks. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "I've got you," Samantha said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You're safe." The back door of the mansion slammed open. Heavy footsteps pounded across the lawn. Samantha looked up to see Anthony Pellegrini running toward them, his face a mask of raw fear she hadn't thought possible from a man who always looked so controlled. He was in a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, dark slacks. No jacket. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he had been running his hands through it. His eyes, dark brown and usually so cold, were locked on his son. He dropped to his knees beside Luca, hands hovering over the boy as if afraid to touch him. "Luca, Luca, can you hear me?" The boy nodded, still coughing. Anthony pulled him into his arms, holding him so tightly Samantha thought he might break the child in half. His shoulders shook. For a moment she thought he was crying, but when he turned his head, his face was dry, just shaking with adrenaline and terror. "I heard the splash from my office," Anthony said, his voice rough. I thought... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Samantha saw it in his eyes. He had thought his son was dead. Anthony pulled back, checking Luca over with frantic hands, checking his pulse, looking into his eyes, touching his face. "Where does it hurt? Did you hit your head? Can you breathe?" Luca nodded to the last question. His voice came out small and hoarse. "I'm okay, Papa. The lady saved me." That was when Anthony seemed to realize Samantha was there. His head turned slowly, and his eyes met hers for the first time since she had started working at the mansion. Really met hers. Not a glance, not a dismissal. A full, intense, unbreakable stare. She was soaked through, dress clinging to her body, hair plastered to her face. Water dripped from her nose, her chin, her fingertips. She was shaking, though she couldn't tell if it was from cold or adrenaline or fear. Anthony's gaze moved from her face to Luca, then back again. Something shifted in his expression. The fear melted into something else. Gratitude, disbelief, and something deeper she couldn't name. He stood slowly, still holding Luca against his chest. Then he reached down with one hand and pulled Samantha to her feet. His grip was strong, almost bruising. He didn't let go. "You pulled him out," Anthony said. Not a question. A statement. Samantha nodded. "He fell in. I saw it from the window upstairs. I just reacted." Anthony's jaw clenched. His eyes swept over her again, taking in every detail. The uniform, the sneakers, the way her hands still trembled. "You dove in fully clothed." "There wasn't time to do anything else," she said quietly. He stared at her for another long moment. Then he did something that surprised her. He reached up with his free hand and cupped the side of her face, his palm warm against her cold, wet skin. His thumb brushed just below her cheekbone. The gesture was gentle, almost reverent. "You saved my son's life," he said, voice low and intense. "Do you understand what that means?" Samantha didn't know how to respond. She could feel Luca watching them, his small face pressed against his father's shoulder. She could feel the heat of Anthony's hand against her skin. She could feel her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. "I was just doing what anyone would do," she managed. "No," Anthony's voice was firm. "Final. Not anyone. You." His hand moved from her face to her shoulder, then to her arm. He was touching her as if making sure she was real, as if confirming she wasn't going to disappear. His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. "You're never leaving," he said. The words hung in the air between them. Samantha blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "What?" "You're never leaving," Anthony repeated, slower this time. Each word deliberate. "Not this house. Not my son. Not me." Before she could respond, the sound of sirens cut through the air. Someone must have called 911. Within minutes, the lawn was swarming with paramedics, police officers, and staff members who appeared from various parts of the mansion. Mrs. Brennan rushed over, her face pale with shock. The paramedics took over, checking Luca's vitals, wrapping him in a blanket, asking questions in calm, professional voices. They tried to check Samantha too, but Anthony waved them off. "She's fine. Focus on my son." But even as he said it, his hand remained on her arm. He didn't let go. Not when the paramedics loaded Luca onto a stretcher. Not when they confirmed the boy was stable and just needed observation. Not when Mrs. Brennan tried to lead Samantha back into the house to change into dry clothes. "She stays with me," Anthony said, his tone brooking no argument. Mrs. Brennan's eyes widened, but she nodded and stepped back. The police asked questions. How did the boy fall? Was anyone supervising him? Who pulled him out? Samantha answered mechanically, her voice distant in her own ears. Anthony's grip on her arm never wavered. When the paramedics finally cleared Luca to stay home instead of going to the hospital, the crowd began to disperse. Staff members returned to their duties, whispering among themselves. Police officers packed up their equipment. The lawn slowly emptied. But Anthony didn't move. He stood there, Luca in one arm, his other hand still holding Samantha's arm. His eyes never left her face. "Sir," she said quietly, aware that they were being watched. "I should go change." "Not yet." His voice was soft but unyielding. Luca stirred in his arms, looking up at his father with tired eyes. "Papa, I'm cold." That seemed to break the spell. Anthony nodded, finally releasing Samantha's arm. But as he turned to carry his son inside, he looked back at her one more time. "Follow me." It wasn't a request. Samantha followed, water squelching in her shoes with every step. They entered through the back door, moved through the massive kitchen, and climbed the main staircase to the second floor. Anthony carried Luca to what must have been the boy's bedroom, a space filled with toys and books and a bed shaped like a race car. He set Luca down gently, pulling off the wet shirt and wrapping him in a thick towel. "You're grounded from the pool for life," Anthony said, but his voice held no anger, only relief. Luca nodded solemnly. "I'm sorry, Papa." Anthony pressed a kiss to the top of his son's head. "Don't be sorry. Just be more careful." He pulled back, looking into the boy's eyes. "Thank Miss Wells properly." Luca turned to Samantha, who was still standing in the doorway, dripping on the expensive hardwood. "Thank you for saving me," he said, his voice small but sincere. Samantha's throat tightened. "You're welcome, Luca." Anthony stood and walked over to her. He gestured for her to follow him out into the hallway. Once they were alone, he closed the door behind them and turned to face her. Up close, she realized just how tall he was. 6'2", maybe 6'3". Broad shoulders, strong jaw, eyes that seemed to see straight through her. "What's your full name?" he asked. "Samantha Wells." "How long have you worked here?" 3 weeks. His eyebrows rose slightly. 3 weeks. "And I've never spoken to you before today." "No, sir." He studied her face, his expression unreadable. "You used to swim competitively." It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "In high school. I was on the team for 4 years. That explains the dive. He crossed his arms over his chest. Most people would have hesitated, looked for help, called for someone else. You didn't. There wasn't time. Samantha said again. No, there wasn't. Anthony's voice softened slightly. If you had hesitated even 5 seconds, my son would be dead right now. The blunt statement hit her like a physical blow. Samantha's hands clenched at her sides. I couldn't let that happen. Why? He tilted his head slightly. You barely know him. You barely know me. You could have drowned trying to save him. Why risk your life? Samantha met his gaze steadily. Because he's a child. Because it was the right thing to do. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. Something flickered in Anthony's eyes. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. He nodded slowly. I meant what I said outside. You're not leaving this house. Sir, I don't understand. You will. He moved closer, closing the distance between them until she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Starting tomorrow, your duties change. You'll be responsible for Luca's care whenever I'm working. You'll stay in the guest wing. Your salary will be increased accordingly. Samantha's heart pounded. That's not necessary. I'm just a maid. You're not just anything. Anthony interrupted, his voice sharp. You're the woman who saved my son's life. That makes you invaluable. She opened her mouth to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a decision that had already been made. I need to know he's safe, Anthony continued, his voice quieter now. I need to know that if something happens, someone capable is there to protect him. Someone who won't hesitate. Someone like you. Samantha swallowed hard. What if I say no? You won't. He said it with absolute certainty. Because you're not the kind of person who walks away when someone needs help. He was right. She hated that he was right. But he was. Samantha took a shaky breath. I have a younger sister. I visit her every Sunday. That can't change. Anthony nodded immediately. Agreed. Sundays are yours. Anything else? She couldn't think of anything else. Her mind was still reeling. No. Good. He stepped back, creating space between them again. Go change. Get warm. Mrs. Brennan will have your things moved to the West Wing tonight. We'll discuss the details tomorrow. Samantha nodded numbly and turned to leave. She made it 3 steps before his voice stopped her. Miss Wells. She looked back. Anthony was standing in the hallway, backlit by the afternoon sun streaming through a window. His expression was softer now, almost vulnerable. Thank you, he said simply. For my son. For everything. Samantha didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded. Then she walked down the hallway, leaving wet footprints on the floor, her heart racing, her mind spinning. Everything had changed in the span of 10 minutes. Her entire life had shifted. And somehow, she knew there was no going back. 2 hours later, Samantha stood in front of a full-length mirror in one of the guest bedrooms on the West Wing. The clothes someone had brought her were simple, but expensive. Soft gray sweatpants and a white cotton t-shirt that fit perfectly. Too perfectly. Someone had guessed her size with unsettling accuracy. Her hair was still damp from the shower, hanging in loose waves past her shoulders. The hot water had helped stop the shaking, but her hands still felt unsteady. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Luca sinking, saw the panic in his small face, felt the weight of him in her arms as she pulled him to safety. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment in the Bronx. King-sized bed with cream-colored linens, dark wood furniture that looked handcrafted, windows overlooking the gardens, a bathroom with heated floors and a rainfall shower. This was temporary, she reminded herself. Just until they figured out the new arrangement Anthony had mentioned. A knock sounded at the door. Before she could respond, it opened. Anthony Pellegrini stepped inside without waiting for permission. He had changed clothes, too. Dark jeans and a black Henley that fit his frame in a way that made Samantha acutely aware she was wearing borrowed clothes in a room that wasn't hers. Mr. Pellegrini, she started, but he raised a hand. Anthony, he said. After what happened today, I think we're past formalities. She nodded, unsure what else to do. He moved further into the room, closing the door behind him. The click of the latch seemed loud in the quiet space. Luca is resting, Anthony said. The doctor checked him over. No water in his lungs. No injuries. He's scared, but he'll be fine. He paused, his dark eyes finding hers. Because of you. I'm glad he's okay, Samantha said quietly. I spoke with Mrs. Brennan about your current living situation. Anthony's tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing a business arrangement. You share a one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx with 2 roommates. You take the subway here every morning at 5:30. You work until 6 in the evening, then commute back. 2 hours of travel every day. Samantha's stomach tightened. He had looked into her life, thoroughly. That's correct. That ends tonight. She blinked. Excuse me. Anthony crossed his arms over his chest. You're not going back to that apartment. You'll live here. This room is yours. Your salary will be increased to 5 times what you're currently making. Your primary responsibility will be Luca's care and safety whenever I'm unavailable. The words came out so calmly, so definitively, that it took Samantha a moment to process them. You want me to move in? Tonight? Yes. I can't just... I have things at my apartment. Responsibilities. My roommates depend on my share of the rent. I'll cover your portion of the rent for the remainder of the lease, Anthony said without hesitation. And I'm sending people to collect your belongings within the hour. Make a list of what you need. Everything else can be replaced. Samantha's head spun. This was too much, too fast. Anthony, I appreciate the offer, but I need time to think. There's nothing to think about. He moved closer, his presence filling the space between them. My son nearly died today. The only reason he didn't is because you were in the right place at the right time with the right skills. That can't be a coincidence I rely on. I need you here. Permanently. She met his gaze, seeing the determination there. But also something else. Fear. The same fear she had seen on the lawn when he thought Luca was gone. This wasn't about control. This was about a father desperate to protect his child. I have a sister, Samantha said. Ashley. She's 19 in college. I visit her every Sunday. That can't change. I won't negotiate on that. Anthony's expression didn't waver. Agreed. Sundays are yours. I'll provide a car and driver if you need it. I don't need a driver. I just need the time. Done. He pulled his phone from his pocket. What else? Samantha's mind raced. What else? She was being offered a life-changing opportunity, financial security, a room in a mansion, a job that actually mattered, and all she had to do was take care of a 5-year-old boy who had already started to matter to her more than she wanted to admit. I want to know what I'm walking into, she said finally. You're not just a wealthy businessman. The security, the way people act around you. I'm not stupid, Anthony. I know there's more to this. His jaw tightened slightly. You're right. There is. But that's not something we discussed tonight. He held her gaze. What you need to know is this. As long as you're under my roof, you're protected. No one will touch you. No one will threaten you. You're safe here. The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it was strangely comforting. Samantha took a breath. Okay. I'll stay. She straightened her shoulders. But I want a contract. Something in writing. Salary, responsibilities, time off. Everything clear. A faint smile touched Anthony's lips. The first real smile she had seen from him. I'll have my lawyer draft something by tomorrow morning. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Samantha looked at his hand, then back at his face. This was insane. 24 hours ago, she had been invisible in this house. Now she was making deals with the man who owned it. But when she thought about Luca's small face, his quiet voice, the way he had looked at her with trust after she pulled him from the water, the decision felt right. She shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm. Deal! Anthony held her hand a moment longer than necessary, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture that felt almost unconscious. Then he released her and stepped back. Make your list. Someone will bring you paper and a pen. Your things will be here before midnight. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Thank you, Samantha. For everything. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in the too-big room with a decision that would change everything. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Samantha's belongings arrived in neat boxes that night, just as Anthony had promised. Her roommates had been paid through the end of their lease with a generous bonus. Everything had been handled smoothly, efficiently, without drama. Mrs. Brennan gave Samantha a tour of the West Wing, explaining the household schedule, introducing her to the rest of the staff. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with something like resentment. The girl who had been just a maid was now living in the family wing, but no one said anything. Not with Anthony's approval hanging over the arrangement like a shield. Luca's reaction was the biggest change. The boy, who had been quiet and withdrawn since she started working at the mansion, began seeking her out constantly. He would appear in doorways while she was reading, asking if she wanted to see his toys. He would sit beside her during meals in the staff kitchen, telling her stories about his favorite cartoons. He would ask her to read to him before bed, handing her worn picture books with careful hands. On the third night, Samantha sat in Luca's race car bed, reading from a book about talking animals. Luca was curled against her side, his small body warm and trusting. His eyes were growing heavy, but he fought sleep, wanting to hear just one more page. "Sam?" he said quietly, using the shortened version of her name he had started using that morning. "Yes? Are you going to stay forever?" Samantha's throat tightened. "I'm going to stay as long as you need me." "Good." Luca yawned. "I like you. You're nice, and you saved me. You're pretty great too, kiddo." He smiled at that, a real, genuine smile that made him look like the child he should have been all along. Then his eyes finally closed, and his breathing evened out into sleep. Samantha carefully extracted herself from the bed, tucking the blankets around him. She turned off the lamp, leaving only the glow of a nightlight shaped like a rocket ship. She was almost to the door when Luca's voice stopped her. "Sam?" She turned back. He hadn't opened his eyes, but his hand was reaching out, searching. "Don't go yet. Please." Samantha returned to the bed and sat on the edge, taking his small hand in hers. "I'm right here. Go to sleep." Within minutes, he was out completely. Samantha stayed there, holding his hand, watching the rise and fall of his chest. She hadn't planned on caring this much, hadn't planned on any of this. But here she was, and walking away now felt impossible. Throughout those days, Anthony remained a presence in the background. Samantha would catch glimpses of him moving through the house, always on his phone, always surrounded by men who deferred to him with a respect that bordered on fear. But every evening, he would appear in Luca's doorway right before bedtime, watching as Samantha read to his son. He never interrupted, never spoke, just stood there, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But his eyes would soften when Luca laughed at something in the story. And sometimes Samantha would glance up and find Anthony looking not at his son, but at her, with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. On the fourth night, everything changed. Samantha was in her room, reading a book she had brought from her old apartment, when she heard it. A cry. High-pitched and terrified. Luca. She was out of bed and running before conscious thought caught up. She burst into Luca's room to find him sitting up, tears streaming down his face, small hands clutching the blankets. "I was drowning," he sobbed. "I couldn't breathe. The water was everywhere." Samantha crossed to him immediately, sitting on the bed and pulling him into her arms. "You're safe. It was just a dream. You're safe." Luca clung to her, his whole body shaking. "I was so scared." I know you were." Samantha rocked him gently, running her fingers through his dark hair. "But you're okay now. I've got you." He continued to cry, the fear too big for his small body to contain. Samantha did the only thing she could think of. She started to hum, low and soft. A lullaby her own mother used to sing when Samantha was young, and the world felt too big. Slowly, the tune took shape, and she began to sing the words. Simple, gentle lyrics about stars and moonlight and being safe in the dark. Luca's sobs quieted. His breathing steadied. His grip on her shirt loosened just slightly. Samantha kept singing, verse after verse, until Luca's eyes grew heavy again, until his body relaxed against hers, until he was asleep, his face pressed against her shoulder, his breathing deep and even. She carefully laid him back down, pulling the covers over him. As she turned to leave, she saw Anthony standing in the doorway. She had no idea how long he had been there. His expression was different than she had ever seen. Open, vulnerable, almost broken. He didn't say anything, just stepped aside to let her pass. Samantha moved into the hallway, and he followed, closing Luca's door softly behind them. They stood there in the dim light, neither speaking. Finally, Anthony broke the silence. He hasn't smiled like that since his mother died. Not until you came. Samantha didn't know what to say. He's a good kid. He just needs someone to listen. He needs you. Anthony's voice was rough, and so do I. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Samantha's heart pounded. Anthony, you're good for him. He continued, as if she hadn't spoken. You're good for this house. He trailed off, jaw clenching. I don't know how to do this without you anymore. Samantha met his eyes. In that moment, she realized something had shifted. This wasn't just about a job anymore. Wasn't just about Luca. Something was growing between them, subtle and undeniable, and neither of them knew how to stop it. I'm not going anywhere, she said softly. Anthony nodded once. Then he did something unexpected. He reached out and touched her face, just like he had by the pool. His hand was warm, his touch gentle. Good. Then he stepped back, the moment breaking, and walked down the hallway toward his own room. Samantha stood there alone, heart racing, knowing that everything had just changed again. And this time, she wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. 3 weeks passed. The rhythm of the house settled into something Samantha could almost call normal. She woke each morning at 6, helped Luca get ready for his day, supervised breakfast, and spent hours reading to him or playing in the gardens. Anthony remained a shadow in the background, appearing at mealtimes and bedtime, but rarely saying more than a few words. The connection from that night in the hallway lingered between them, unspoken, but present. Samantha had fallen into the role more completely than she expected. Luca called for her first thing every morning. He held her hand when they walked through the house. He laughed more now, smiled more. The sad, withdrawn boy from 3 weeks ago had started to disappear, replaced by someone lighter. She visited Ashley on Sundays as promised. Her sister had been skeptical at first about the new arrangement. But when Samantha showed up in a car Anthony had provided and explained the salary increase, Ashley's concerns faded. The money meant Samantha could help with tuition without stretching every dollar. It meant stability. It meant breathing room neither of them had experienced in years. But on a Tuesday afternoon in early August, everything shifted again. Samantha was in the library with Luca, reading from a book about dinosaurs, when the air in the house changed. It was subtle at first. Footsteps moving faster than usual. Voices in the hallway speaking in clipped tones. The front door opening and closing multiple times. Luca looked up from the book, his small face creasing with worry. What's happening? I don't know, Samantha said honestly. But I'm sure it's fine. Do you want to keep reading? He nodded, but his attention was divided now. Samantha continued the story, but her own focus wavered. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the tension that had crept into the mansion like fog. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Brennan appeared in the library doorway. Her usual stern expression was even tighter than normal. Miss Wells, Mr. Pellegrini would like to see you in his office, immediately. Samantha's stomach dropped. She had only been in Anthony's office once during her first week, when she signed the new contract. It was a space that radiated power and control. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk made of dark wood, windows overlooking the front drive. Can Luca come with me? Samantha asked. Mrs. Brennan shook her head. Mr. Pellegrini was specific. Just you. I'll stay with the boy. Luca's hand tightened on Samantha's arm. Where are you going? Just to talk to your father for a minute, Samantha said, keeping her voice calm. Mrs. Brennan will finish the dinosaur book with you. I'll be right back. She stood, squeezed his shoulder reassuringly, and followed Mrs. Brennan out of the library. They walked through the main hallway, past rooms Samantha rarely entered, until they reached the heavy oak door of Anthony's office. Mrs. Brennan knocked once, then opened it without waiting for a response. "Miss Wells, sir." "Thank you." Anthony's voice came from inside. "Close the door behind her. Mrs." Brennan gestured for Samantha to enter, then pulled the door shut with a soft click. Samantha found herself standing in the middle of the office, suddenly aware of how out of place she felt in her simple jeans and cotton shirt. Anthony sat behind his desk, but he wasn't alone. 2 men stood near the windows. One was tall and broad-shouldered with a scar running along his jawline. The other was leaner, younger, with sharp eyes that tracked Samantha's every movement. Both wore suits that suggested they were more than regular staff. Anthony stood when he saw her. "Samantha, sit." She moved to one of the chairs facing his desk and sat down, folding her hands in her lap to hide their trembling. Anthony remained standing, his expression serious. "This is Vincent." He gestured to the scarred man. "Head of security. And Marco." He nodded toward the younger one. "His second." Vincent nodded in acknowledgement. Marco said nothing, just continued watching her with those sharp eyes. "There's a situation," Anthony said without preamble. "Vincent received information this morning about a threat to this household. I'm telling you because it affects you and Luca directly." Samantha's pulse quickened. "What kind of threat?" Vincent stepped forward, pulling a tablet from his jacket. He turned it toward her, showing surveillance photos, men in cars, license plates, timestamps. "We've been monitoring activity from a rival organization, the Cartel de Sinaloa. They've been making moves into our territory for the past 6 months. Quiet moves, calculated. Our intelligence suggests they're planning something more aggressive," Marco added, his voice cold and professional, "specifically targeting family members to force territorial concessions." Samantha's mouth went dry. "Luca, and you," Anthony said quietly. "You're part of this household now. That makes you a target too." She should have been terrified. Part of her was. But another part, the part that had dove into a pool without thinking, stayed calm, focused. "What are you doing about it?" Anthony's eyes held hers, increasing security, reinforcing the perimeter, limiting outside contact. No one enters this property without thorough vetting. No one gets close to Luca without going through multiple checkpoints. "How serious is this?" Samantha asked. "Serious enough that I'm telling you instead of keeping you in the dark," Anthony replied. He moved around the desk, leaning against the front edge so he was closer to her. "I won't lie to you, Samantha. The world I operate in is dangerous. People who want to hurt me will look for weaknesses. Right now, Luca is my biggest weakness. And you," he paused, jaw tightening. "You're becoming one too." The admission hung in the air. Samantha processed it slowly. She had known Anthony wasn't just a businessman. The security, the deference from staff, the way people moved around him with careful respect. She had known. But hearing it stated so plainly was different. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Anthony's expression shifted. Something like relief crossed his face. "I need you to stay alert. Don't leave the property without informing Vincent. Don't take Luca outside the secured areas. If you see anything unusual, anyone you don't recognize, report it immediately." "Okay," Samantha nodded. "Is there anything else?" Vincent exchanged a glance with Anthony. "She's taking this well. She's practical," Anthony said, still looking at Samantha. "One of the things I respect about her." Samantha stood, meeting his gaze directly. "Thank you for telling me. I'd rather know what we're dealing with than be kept in the dark." That earned her a small, genuine smile from Anthony. "Most people would be asking why I'm putting them in danger, why they should stay." "You're not putting me in danger," Samantha said. "The danger exists whether I know about it or not. At least now I can be prepared." Anthony pushed off from the desk and stepped closer to her, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark brown eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from him. "You're not afraid." "I am," she admitted. "But being afraid doesn't help Luca. So I'll deal with it and do what needs to be done." Something passed between them in that moment. Understanding, recognition, trust. Anthony reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. The touch was brief, professional, but it carried weight. "Thank you." Vincent cleared his throat. "Boss, we should finish the briefing." Anthony nodded but didn't immediately step back. "Go back to Luca. Keep him calm. Don't tell him anything specific, but if he asks why there are more guards, just say we're being extra careful. Understood. Samantha turned to leave, then paused. Anthony, how long has this been going on? The rivalry? Years. This specific threat? About a month. A month. He had known for a month and only just told her. Part of her wanted to be angry, but she understood. He had been protecting her, keeping her separate from the darker parts of his world. But now that separation wasn't possible anymore. I can handle it, she said quietly. Whatever comes. Anthony's eyes held hers. I know you can. That's why you're still here. Samantha left the office, her mind racing. The hallway felt different now. Every shadow seemed deeper, every sound sharper. But she forced herself to walk calmly back to the library where Luca waited. Mrs. Brennan had finished the dinosaur book and was starting another one. Luca's face lit up when Samantha entered. Sam, you're back! Told you I would be. She settled beside him on the couch. What are we reading now? The rest of the day passed in carefully maintained normalcy. Samantha played games with Luca, helped him build a tower out of blocks, and made sure he ate his dinner. But she noticed the changes. More guards patrolling the grounds. Cameras being adjusted. New locks being installed on certain doors. Luca noticed too. At bedtime, as Samantha tucked him in, he asked the question she had been dreading. Why are there more guards, Sam? She sat on the edge of his bed, choosing her words carefully. Your dad just wants to make extra sure we're all safe. It's nothing to worry about. Are bad people trying to hurt us? Samantha's chest tightened. Your dad won't let anyone hurt you. Neither will I. You're safe here, Luca. I promise. He studied her face with those two old eyes. Okay. I believe you. She read him 2 stories, then sat with him until he fell asleep. When she finally left his room, she found Anthony waiting in the hallway. He was in dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked tired. The lines around his eyes were deeper than usual. He okay? Anthony asked. He's worried but trying not to show it, Samantha replied. He's a tough kid. He gets that from his mother. Anthony's voice was soft, almost distant. He started walking down the hallway, and Samantha fell into step beside him. They moved through the house in silence until they reached the kitchen. Do you want something to drink? Anthony asked, already pulling open cabinets. Sure. He prepared 2 mugs of hot chocolate, the movements practiced and sure. Samantha watched, surprised. You know how to make hot chocolate? Maria used to make it for Luca when he couldn't sleep, Anthony said, not looking at her. After she died, I had to learn. It was the only thing that would calm him down some nights. It was the first time he had mentioned his wife directly to her. Samantha stayed quiet, sensing there was more he wanted to say. Anthony handed her a mug, then leaned against the counter, staring down into his own drink. She died 2 years ago. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light and hit her head on. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. I'm sorry, Samantha said quietly. Luca was 3. Too young to really understand. He kept asking when Mama was coming home. Anthony's jaw clenched. I didn't know how to answer him. I still don't sometimes. You're doing the best you can, Samantha said. He knows you love him. Anthony looked up at her, his eyes dark and haunted. After Maria died, I couldn't look at him without feeling like I'd failed. Failed to protect her. Failed to keep our family safe. Every time I saw his face, I saw her. And it hurt too much. Samantha's throat tightened. That's why you kept your distance. I told myself I was busy. That work demanded my attention. But the truth is, I was a coward. I couldn't face my own son because it meant facing what I'd lost. He set his mug down on the counter. Then you came. And suddenly Luca was smiling again, laughing, being a kid. And I realized I'd been failing him in a completely different way. You're not failing him, Samantha said firmly. You're here now. That's what matters. Anthony moved closer to her, closing the distance until they were only a foot apart. You saved him twice. Once from the pool. Once from me. Anthony, he reached out and took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. The touch was gentle, questioning. I don't know how to thank you for that. Samantha's heart pounded. You don't have to thank me. I care about him. I know you do. His voice dropped lower. And that terrifies me. Why? Because everyone I care about ends up hurt. His grip on her hand tightened slightly. And I can't let that happen to you. Before Samantha could respond, a sharp beep cut through the moment. Anthony pulled his phone from his pocket, glancing at the screen. His expression darkened. Vincent. Security alert. He released her hand and stepped away, already dialing. What is it? Samantha couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Anthony's face harden into something cold and dangerous. How many times? Show me the footage. He ended the call and looked at her. Cameras picked up a car circling the block. Same vehicle, 3 passes in the last hour, no plates visible. The cartel? Samantha asked. Most likely. Anthony's voice was ice. They're watching, testing our security, seeing how we react. What happens now? Now we show them that approaching this house is a mistake they won't make twice. He moved toward the door, then paused. Stay inside tomorrow. Keep Luca occupied. Don't go near the windows. Samantha nodded. Be careful. Something flickered in his eyes. Always. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in the kitchen with 2 mugs of cooling hot chocolate and the weight of a world she was only beginning to understand. 2 days after the security alert, Anthony made the decision. Samantha was in the library with Luca when he appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, expression set in stone. Pack a bag, he said without preamble. Both of you, we're leaving in an hour. Luca looked up from the puzzle they had been working on. Where are we going, Papa? Somewhere safer. Anthony's eyes moved to Samantha. Bring clothes for 3 days. Essentials only. Vincent will handle the rest. Samantha stood, her pulse quickening. What happened? Nothing yet. That's why we're moving now. He crouched down to Luca's level. Hey, buddy. How do you feel about a helicopter ride? Luca's eyes widened. A real helicopter? The realest. Anthony ruffled his son's hair. Go with Sam. Help her pack your favorite things. 50 minutes later, Samantha stood on the back lawn with a single duffel bag slung over her shoulder, and Luca's hand tight in hers. The boy clutched a backpack containing 3 dinosaur toys, 2 books, and his favorite blanket. His eyes were locked on the black helicopter sitting on the grass, rotors already beginning to turn. Anthony emerged from the house in dark jeans and a leather jacket, a bag of his own in one hand. He looked different outside the context of the mansion. Less formal, more dangerous. He spoke briefly with Vincent, who nodded and stepped back, already barking orders into his radio. Let's go. Anthony took Luca's other hand, and the 3 of them walked toward the helicopter. The noise grew louder with each step, the wind from the rotors whipping Samantha's hair around her face. Anthony opened the door and lifted Luca inside first, buckling him into a seat with practiced efficiency. Then he turned to Samantha, taking her bag and stowing it before helping her up. His hand lingered on her waist for just a moment, steadying her. Then he climbed into the pilot's seat. You can fly this? Samantha asked, surprised. Among other things, Anthony put on a headset and handed 2 more back to them. Put these on. It gets loud. Samantha helped Luca with his headset, then secured her own. Anthony's voice came through, clear and calm. Everyone ready? Ready? Luca said, excitement overriding any fear. The helicopter lifted smoothly, rising above the mansion until the entire property spread out below them like a model. Samantha watched the ground fall away, her stomach dropping with the altitude. Luca pressed his face to the window, pointing at cars and buildings that grew smaller by the second. Where are we going? Samantha asked through the headset. Upstate New York, private property. No one knows about it except my inner circle. Anthony's hands moved confidently over the controls. We'll be there in about 90 minutes. Luca's excitement lasted approximately 20 minutes before the steady hum of the helicopter and the gentle rocking motion lulled him to sleep. His head drooped against Samantha's shoulder, his small body going limp with exhaustion. She adjusted him carefully, letting him curl against her side. He trusts you completely, Anthony said, glancing back at them. The feeling is mutual. Samantha stroked Luca's hair absently. They flew in comfortable silence for a while, the landscape rolling out beneath them. Cities gave way to suburbs, which gave way to forests and open land. The further north they traveled, the more isolated everything became. Have you ever been to upstate New York? Anthony asked. No. I've barely been outside of Connecticut and New York City. You'll like this place. It's quiet, peaceful, the exact opposite of the mansion. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Samantha asked. Anthony was quiet for a moment. Depends on the day. They landed on a clearing, surrounded by dense forest. The house that emerged from the trees as they approached on foot was nothing like the mansion in Connecticut. This was a cabin, though calling it that felt inadequate. 2 stories of dark wood and stone, with wide windows and a wraparound porch. Smoke curled from a chimney. Solar panels glinted on the roof. How long have you had this place? Samantha asked, as Anthony unlocked the front door. Built it 5 years ago. Maria and I were going to use it as a vacation house. His voice was neutral, but Samantha heard the weight beneath it. We came here twice before she died. Haven't been back since. Inside, the cabin was warm and surprisingly modern. Open floor plan with a kitchen that flowed into a living area. Exposed beams overhead. A stone fireplace dominating one wall. Furniture that looked comfortable and lived in rather than expensive and untouchable. Luca woke up as they entered, blinking sleepily. Where are we? This is our house in the woods, Anthony said. What do you think? Luca looked around, then smiled. It's like a castle, but smaller. Exactly like that. Anthony set down the bags. Your room is upstairs. Want to see? Luca nodded enthusiastically, and Anthony led him up a staircase along the back wall. Samantha heard their voices overhead, Luca's excited questions and Anthony's patient answers. She moved to the windows, looking out at the forest that pressed close on all sides. No neighbors, no roads visible. Just trees and sky and silence. She heard footsteps on the stairs and turned to see Anthony descending alone. He's exploring his room. Found a box of old toys up there. How many security people are here? Samantha asked. 4. Positioned around the perimeter. You won't see them unless something goes wrong. Anthony moved to the kitchen, opening cabinets. I stocked the place yesterday. We have everything we need for a few days. And after that, we reassess. See if the threat level has decreased. He pulled out a bottle of water and took a long drink. For now, we stay put. The first day passed in unexpected calm. They stayed inside mostly, with Luca bouncing between excitement at the new location and nervousness about why they were there. Anthony remained close, more present than Samantha had ever seen him at the mansion. He made breakfast. He played cards with Luca. He even helped the boy build a fort out of couch cushions in the living room. That evening, as the sun set through the trees, Anthony announced they were going fishing. Luca's eyes went wide. I don't know how to fish. Then it's time you learned. Anthony pulled fishing rods from a storage closet. Sam, you coming? Samantha hesitated. I've never fished either. Even better. You can both learn together. They walked through the trees to a lake that opened up behind the cabin. The water was glass smooth, reflecting the pink and orange sky. A small dock extended 20 feet out. Anthony baited the hooks while Luca watched with fascination, and Samantha tried not to think too hard about the worms. Okay, buddy, hold it like this. Anthony positioned Luca's small hands on the rod. Now we're going to cast. Ready? Together they swung the line out over the water. It landed with a soft plop. Luca giggled. Did I do it right? Perfect. Anthony handed him the rod. Now we wait. Fish like patience. They sat on the dock, legs dangling over the edge. Samantha watched from the shore, arms wrapped around her knees. The scene felt surreal. Anthony Pellegrini, who commanded rooms full of dangerous men, sitting beside his 5-year-old son, teaching him to fish with endless patience. Sam, come sit with us, Luca called. Samantha joined them on the dock, settling on Anthony's other side. He handed her the second rod, already baited. Your turn. She cast awkwardly, the line tangling slightly. Anthony reached over, his hands covering hers as he helped guide the rod. Smooth motion. Don't force it. His breath was warm against her ear. His chest pressed against her back. The line cast properly this time, sailing out over the water. But Samantha barely noticed. All she could focus on was the feeling of Anthony's arms around her, the solid strength of him, the way her heart hammered against her ribs. He released her slowly, his hands trailing down her arms before pulling away. Better. They sat there as the sun sank lower, painting the world in shades of gold and violet. Luca caught a fish, small and silvery. Anthony showed him how to reel it in, praising his technique. They released it back into the water, watching it dart away. "Can we come here every summer?" Luca asked. Anthony glanced at Samantha, something unreadable in his eyes. "Maybe. If Sam wants to." Luca turned to her, hope bright on his face. "Do you want to, Sam?" Samantha looked at the lake, at the forest, at this place that felt like it existed outside of time. "Yeah, I'd like that." The second day, it rained. Heavy drops that drummed against the roof and turned the world outside the windows into sheets of water. They stayed inside, reading books and playing board games. Anthony made lunch, simple sandwiches and soup that tasted better than anything from the mansion kitchen. That afternoon, while Luca napped upstairs, Samantha found herself in the kitchen preparing dinner. She had discovered chicken and vegetables in the refrigerator and decided to make stir-fry. She was chopping peppers when Anthony appeared. "Need help?" he asked. "Sure. You can start the rice." They worked in comfortable silence, moving around each other in the small kitchen. Anthony found the rice cooker, measured out water with precision. Samantha heated oil in a pan, the sizzle filling the quiet space. "You're good at this," Anthony observed. "Cooking? I had to learn. After our parents died, Ashley was 13. I was 18. Someone had to feed us." "How long ago was that?" 8 years. Samantha tossed vegetables into the pan. "Car accident, black ice. They went off the road and into a ravine, died instantly." Anthony stopped measuring rice. "I'm sorry." "Me too." She stirred the vegetables, watching them brown. "Ashley doesn't remember them as well as I do. Sometimes I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse. Both, probably." Anthony moved closer, leaning against the counter beside her. "After Maria died, people kept telling me that at least Luca was young, that he wouldn't remember the pain as much. But I think forgetting someone you love is its own kind of pain." Samantha looked at him, really looked at him. Not the dangerous man who commanded respect. Not the boss who made decisions that affected lives. Just a father who had lost his wife. A man carrying grief he didn't know how to set down. "You loved her a lot," she said quietly. "I did." Anthony's eyes were distant. "We grew up together, got married young, built a life. I thought we'd have decades. We got 7 years. Tell me about her." He was quiet for so long Samantha thought he wouldn't answer. Then he started talking. About Maria's laugh. About how she sang off key in the shower. About her terrible sense of direction and her obsession with collecting antique teacups. Small details that painted a picture of a real person, not just a memory. "She would have liked you," Anthony said finally. "She always said I needed someone around who wouldn't take my attitude." Samantha smiled. "I don't think anyone takes your attitude. You did. That first day in my office, when I told you that you weren't leaving, you negotiated terms, demanded a contract. Most people just say yes to whatever I want. Most people are smarter than me, apparently." Anthony laughed, a real, genuine sound that transformed his face. "Or braver." They continued cooking, their movements sinking without conscious effort. Anthony chopped garlic while Samantha added chicken to the pan. He handed her soy sauce without being asked. She passed him a spoon when he needed to taste the rice. "I always wanted a big family," Samantha said as she plated the food. 3 or 4 kids, a house with a yard, family dinners every night, the whole thing. Why didn't you? Life got in the way. Taking care of Ashley, working multiple jobs to pay rent. There wasn't time for relationships or planning a future. She set the plates on the small dining table. By the time Ashley was stable, I was so used to being alone that it felt easier to stay that way. Anthony studied her face. "You're good with Luca. Natural, like you were meant for it. He's easy to love." The words came out softer than she intended. "So are you." The statement hung between them. Samantha's breath caught. Anthony stepped closer, closing the space until they were inches apart. His hand came up to cup her jaw, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Samantha." he said, her name rough in his throat. Anthony, she barely whispered it. He leaned in, his eyes searching hers, asking permission, offering a choice. Samantha's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She started to rise on her toes, to close that final distance. A cry shattered the moment. "Papa!" They jerked apart. Anthony was up the stairs in seconds, taking them 3 at a time. Samantha followed, her legs shaky. They found Luca sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face. "The water," he sobbed. "I couldn't get out. I tried, but I couldn't." Anthony pulled him close. "It's okay. You're safe. It was just a dream." Samantha sat on the other side of the bed, rubbing Luca's back in slow circles. "We're both right here. Nothing's going to hurt you." It took 20 minutes to calm him down. They stayed with him until he fell back asleep, sandwiched between them in the small bed. When Anthony finally stood, his expression was carefully neutral again. The moment from the kitchen was gone. They ate dinner in near silence. Afterwards, Anthony's phone rang. He answered, listened, then walked outside despite the rain. Samantha watched through the window as he paced the porch, gestures sharp and angry. When he came back inside, his face was stone. That was Vincent. They captured someone watching the mansion. Low-level guy from the cartel. He talked. And? Anthony's eyes met hers, dark and serious. They have photos. Of Luca. Of the mansion. Of you. Samantha's blood went cold. Me. They know you're connected to us now. They know you matter to Luca. He moved closer. Which means you matter to them. What does that mean? It means this is bigger than I thought. More organized. They're not just making threats. They're planning something specific. His hands clenched at his sides. And I'm not letting them get anywhere near you or my son. The third morning at the cabin, Anthony received a call that changed everything. Samantha was making breakfast while Luca built a tower out of wooden blocks on the living room floor. She heard Anthony's voice from the bedroom upstairs, low and tense, speaking rapidly in Italian. When he came down, his expression was set in hard lines. "I need to leave for a few hours." Samantha set down the spatula. "Where?" "Meeting. Neutral territory." He glanced at Luca, who was absorbed in his blocks. "I'm going to try to negotiate directly with a representative from the cartel. End this before it escalates further. Is that safe?" "Safer than waiting for them to make the first move." Anthony pulled out his phone, typing quickly. "You'll have 6 guards here. Vincent is sending 2 more from Connecticut. They'll be in position within the hour." Samantha's stomach tightened. "How long will you be gone?" 4 hours. Maybe 5. He moved closer, lowering his voice. "There's a safe room upstairs. Master bedroom closet behind the shelves. If anything happens, anything at all, you take Luca there and lock it from the inside. The door is reinforced steel. Nothing gets through it. Anthony, there's also a gun." He pulled a sleek black handgun from the back of his waistband, in the nightstand drawer. "Do you know how to use one?" Samantha stared at the weapon. "I took a safety course once, years ago." "Good. Safety is here. Point and shoot if you need to. Aim for center mass." He slid the gun back into the drawer. "But you won't need it. The guards will handle any problems. This is just precaution. You're scaring me." Anthony's face softened slightly. He reached out and touched her arm. "I'm being careful. That's different. The meeting is on camera, public location, multiple witnesses. They won't try anything there. And they don't know about this place. You're safe." Luca looked up from his blocks. "Papa, where are you going?" "Work meeting, buddy. I'll be back before dinner." Anthony crouched beside his son. "You're going to stay here with Sam and be good, okay?" "Okay." Luca hugged his father tightly. "Come back soon. I promise." Anthony stood and met Samantha's eyes one more time. "Lock the doors after I leave. Don't open them for anyone except the guards I've already cleared. Vincent will send you their photos." Within minutes, her phone buzzed with 6 photographs. 6 faces she committed to memory. Then Anthony was gone, the sound of his SUV fading into the forest. Samantha locked the doors as instructed. She checked the windows, made sure her phone was fully charged. Then she tried to focus on keeping Luca entertained and calm. They played games, read books, made cookies that turned out slightly burnt but tasted fine. Luca seemed content, oblivious to the tension coiling in Samantha's chest. Through the windows, she occasionally glimpsed movement. The guards, patrolling the perimeter, doing their jobs. 3 hours passed, then 4. Samantha checked her phone repeatedly. No messages from Anthony. She told herself that was good. It meant the meeting was going as planned. Luca was building another block tower when Samantha heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Sharp. Distant. Like a firecracker, but not quite. She froze. Luca didn't seem to notice, still stacking blocks carefully. Samantha moved to the window, peering out into the forest. Nothing visible. Maybe she had imagined it. Then her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 2 guards down. Get to safe room now. Her blood turned to ice. Samantha scooped Luca up from the floor. We're going to play a game, okay? A hiding game. What kind of game? The kind where we're very, very quiet. She carried him up the stairs, moving fast. Her hands shook as she pushed open the master bedroom door. The closet was walk-in, deep, lined with shelves. She found the hidden latch Anthony had shown her that morning and pulled. The back panel swung open, revealing a small room. Concrete walls. Emergency supplies. A landline phone mounted on the wall. Wow, Luca breathed. A secret room. We're going to wait in here until your dad comes home. Samantha set him down inside. Can you be super quiet for me? Luca nodded, eyes wide but trusting. Samantha started to step inside with him, then stopped. The gun. If someone made it to this room, the steel door wouldn't matter. She needed to slow them down. Buy time. Stay right here, she told Luca. Don't make a sound. If anyone comes except me or your dad, you use that phone and call 911. Can you do that? Yes. His voice was small, scared. Good boy. She kissed his forehead. I'll be right back. She closed the safe room door, hearing the lock engage from inside. Then she ran to the nightstand and grabbed the gun. The weight was heavier than she remembered. Her hands trembled as she checked the safety, just like the instructor had taught her years ago. Downstairs, glass shattered. The sound of the front door being kicked in. Samantha's heart slammed against her ribs. She moved to the bedroom doorway, positioning herself where she could see the stairs but remain partially hidden. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people. Voices speaking Spanish. She counted 3 distinct speakers. Her finger rested on the trigger guard. Not inside yet. Wait. Don't shoot unless you have to. The first man appeared at the top of the stairs. Tall, muscular, wearing all black. He carried a pistol low at his side. Behind him, 2 more men emerged. They moved like professionals, weapons ready, eyes scanning. Check the rooms, one said in accented English. They split up. One heading toward the spare bedroom, another toward the bathroom. The third, the tall one, walking straight toward the master bedroom. Toward her. Samantha's breath came in short gasps. She raised the gun, both hands gripping it the way she'd been taught. Center mass. Just like Anthony said, the man reached the doorway, his weapon sweeping the room. His eyes locked on her. For a split second, surprise registered on his face. Then his gun started to rise. Samantha pulled the trigger. The recoil kicked through her arms. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The man jerked backward, stumbling, his weapon dropping from his hand. She had hit him. Shoulder, not center mass. But she had hit him. Down! She's armed! Someone shouted. The other 2 men came running. Samantha fired again, wild this time, missing completely. The bullet buried itself in the wall. Her ears rang. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the gun. Then gunfire erupted from downstairs. Different weapons. The guards, finally responding. One of the intruders in the hallway cursed and returned fire toward the stairs. The noise was overwhelming. Samantha dropped to the floor, crawling behind the bed. The firefight lasted forever and no time at all. Shots echoed through the house. Glass breaking. Wood splintering. Someone screaming. Then, suddenly, silence. Clear. A voice she recognized. One of the guards. Upstairs clear. Samantha stayed where she was, gun still clutched in both hands, entire body shaking. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. A guard appeared in the doorway, weapon raised, then lowered when he saw her. "Miss Wells, you hit?" She shook her head, unable to speak. "The boy?" "Safe room." She managed to whisper it. The guard spoke into his radio. "Package secure. 1 hostile down, wounded, 2 fled. Backup needed. Now." More footsteps. More voices. The house filled with guards who had been positioned further out, converging on the scene. Samantha heard them securing the wounded man she had shot. Heard them calling for medical. Heard everything through a fog of adrenaline and shock. She forced herself to stand and stumbled to the closet. Her hands fumbled with the safe room latch. "Luca, baby, it's me. You can come out." The door opened. Luca's face was streaked with tears, his eyes enormous. "Sam?" She dropped the gun and pulled him into her arms, holding him so tightly she thought she might break him. "I've got you. You're okay. We're okay." Luca clung to her, his small body shaking. "I heard noises. Scary noises. I know. But it's over now. You're safe." She carried him out of the closet, past the bedroom where blood stained the floor, down the stairs where bullet holes pocked the walls. Guards moved through the house, securing the area, checking for additional threats. One of them tried to take Luca from her arms, but she wouldn't let go. They ended up in the living room, Samantha sitting on the couch with Luca in her lap, both of them silent and shell-shocked. Through the broken windows, she could hear sirens in the distance. Then, closer, the distinctive sound of a helicopter. Anthony. The helicopter landed hard on the lawn. Anthony was out before the rotors stopped spinning, running toward the house. He took in the broken door, the shattered windows, the guards with weapons drawn. His face went pale. "Where are they?" His voice was barely controlled rage. "Inside. Both safe," a guard reported. Anthony burst through the door. His eyes found Samantha and Luca immediately. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of them. His hands moved over Luca first, checking for injuries, for blood, for any sign of harm. "I'm okay, Papa," Luca whispered. "Sam saved me." Anthony's eyes moved to Samantha. She looked back at him, still holding Luca, still trembling. Anthony's jaw worked. Then he carefully lifted Luca from her arms and into his own. He stood, pulling Samantha up with his free hand, and wrapped both of them in his embrace. "You're safe," he said, voice rough. "Both of you. You're safe." Samantha felt something break inside her. The adrenaline, the fear, everything she had been holding together for the past hour. She started shaking harder, her knees going weak. Anthony held her tighter. "I shot him," she whispered. "There were 3 of them, and I shot one, and I don't know if he's—" "You did exactly what you needed to do." Anthony pulled back just enough to look at her face. "You protected my son. You protected yourself. You were extraordinary." Luca was crying now, his face buried in Anthony's shoulder. Anthony carried him to the couch and sat, pulling Samantha down beside them. They stayed like that, the 3 of them tangled together, until the sirens arrived. Police poured into the clearing. Paramedics checked over Luca and Samantha, while Anthony stood nearby, speaking in low, dangerous tones to the sheriff. The man nodded repeatedly, asked few questions, and left quickly with his officers. The wounded intruder was loaded into an ambulance under guard. Vincent arrived an hour later. He took one look at the scene and his expression turned murderous. How did they know the location? Anthony's eyes were ice. That's what we're going to find out. It took 3 hours to piece together. One of the newer guards, hired just 2 weeks ago, had sold the information. Background check had been rushed. References faked. He had been working for the cartel from the beginning, feeding them details, waiting for the right moment. "Where is he?" Anthony asked, voice deadly calm. "Taken care of," Vincent replied. "He won't be a problem." Samantha didn't ask what that meant. She didn't want to know. By nightfall, the decision was made. They couldn't stay at the cabin. The location was compromised. The mansion in Connecticut, with its upgraded security and fortified perimeter, was safer. They flew back under darkness. Luca fell asleep in Samantha's arms during the flight, exhausted from crying. Anthony piloted in grim silence, his knuckles white on the controls. When they landed at the mansion, Vincent was waiting with a full security briefing. 15 guards now instead of 6. New cameras, motion sensors, reinforced gates. The property had been transformed into a fortress. Anthony carried Luca to his room while Samantha followed on unsteady legs. They tucked him in together, neither willing to leave him alone. When his breathing finally evened into sleep, Anthony took Samantha's hand and led her out into the hallway. "You saved his life today," he said. "Again. I just did what I had to. You shot a man, kept my son safe while armed intruders were in the house." Most people would have frozen. His hands came up to cup her face. "You're not most people." Samantha's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I was terrified. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you act anyway." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." She laughed, a broken sound. "I don't feel strong. You are." He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "And I'm never letting anything hurt you. Never again." Samantha buried her face in his chest, finally letting the tears fall. Anthony held her through it, solid and unshakable, until she had nothing left. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere had transformed into something resembling a war room. The attack on the cabin had changed everything. What had been defensive posturing became active retaliation. Anthony wasn't waiting anymore. Samantha kept Luca occupied upstairs, while men in expensive suits filled the dining room downstairs. She could hear voices, low and serious, discussing things she didn't fully understand. Territory, supply lines, distribution points. The language of Anthony's world, spoken openly now that pretense had been stripped away. On the second day back, she was reading to Luca in his room when Anthony appeared in the doorway. "Can you come downstairs for a minute?" Luca looked up. "Is Sam in trouble?" "No, buddy. I just need to talk to her about grown-up stuff." Anthony ruffled his son's hair. "Keep reading. We'll be right back." Samantha followed Anthony down the hallway. Instead of going to his office, he led her to the dining room. 8 men sat around the table. Some she recognized from previous visits, others she had never seen before. All of them looked up when she entered. "Gentlemen, this is Samantha Wells," Anthony said. "She's the woman who saved my son twice now. Once from drowning, once from armed intruders at the cabin." Several of the men nodded with what looked like genuine respect. One, older with silver hair and sharp blue eyes, stood and extended his hand. "Miss Wells, Joseph Ricci, I've heard about your actions. Very impressive." Samantha shook his hand, confused. "Thank you." Anthony pulled out a chair for her. "Sit. You should hear this." "Anthony, I don't think—" "You were there when they attacked," he interrupted, his voice firm. "Your life is at risk now just as much as ours. You deserve to know what we're doing about it." Samantha sat slowly. The men around the table watched her with varying degrees of curiosity and assessment. She felt completely out of her depth, but forced herself to meet their gazes steadily. Anthony remained standing, moving to the head of the table. The Cartel de Sinaloa made their move. They failed, but they know about this house now, about Luca, about Samantha. Waiting for them to try again isn't an option. "So what's the plan?" another man asked, younger, with dark hair and a Brooklyn accent. "We hit them first, hard, in a way that makes it clear there won't be a third attempt." Anthony pulled up a digital map on the screen at the far end of the room. 3 locations lit up in red. These are their primary distribution points on the East Coast. New Jersey, Philadelphia, Baltimore. "We take all 3 in a coordinated strike." Samantha's eyes widened. "How do you know where their distribution points are?" "Intelligence we've been gathering for months," Vincent answered from his position near the door. "We've had people watching them since they started making moves into our territory." "And you're just going to attack them?" Samantha asked. "Not directly," Anthony said. "That's where our friends at the FBI come in." Joseph Ricci leaned back in his chair. "We feed the feds what we can, through cutouts, through tips that don't circle back to our front door. They build their case, they get their warrants, and they do the part that looks good on television. The public gets headlines and arrests. We get them out of our territory. On paper, it's a win for everyone. You work with the FBI? Samantha couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. We have an understanding, Anthony said carefully. They know we exist. We know they exist. Sometimes our interests align. This is one of those times. Another man spoke up, heavyset with a thick beard. What about the representative who ordered the hit on your family? The one who showed up at the cabin? Anthony's expression went cold. That's being handled separately. By the time this is over, he won't be giving anyone orders. The finality in his voice made Samantha's stomach twist. She knew what he meant, knew what being handled implied. Part of her wanted to object, to say there had to be another way. But she remembered Luca's terrified face in the safe room, remembered the sound of gunfire, remembered pulling the trigger herself. When does this happen? She asked. 48 hours, Anthony said. Simultaneous raids at all 3 locations. Thursday morning, 5 a.m. The meeting continued for another hour. Samantha listened as they discussed logistics, coordination, contingencies. These men spoke about violence and crime with the same calm efficiency others might use discussing business deals. Because for them, she realized, it was business. When the meeting finally ended and the men began filing out, Joseph Ricci paused beside Samantha's chair. You're holding up well, Miss Wells. Not many civilians could handle this. I'm not sure I am handling it, she admitted. You're here. You're listening. You're still standing. He smiled slightly. That's more than most could do. Anthony chose well. After the room cleared, Samantha turned to Anthony. I want to help. He frowned. Samantha. Not with the raids or whatever you're planning, but here, during those 48 hours. There's going to be people coming and going, meetings, phone calls. Let me coordinate things. Make sure everyone has what they need. Keep the house running so you can focus on the important stuff. Anthony studied her face. You don't have to do that. I know. But I want to. Luca needs normalcy. The house needs organization. And I need to feel like I'm doing something useful, instead of just hiding upstairs. He moved closer, his hand coming up to brush a strand of hair from her face. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Then let me do more. He held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, thank you. The next 48 hours were the most intense of Samantha's life. The mansion filled with people. Guards rotating shifts, men arriving for briefings and leaving for surveillance runs. Phones ringing constantly. Vincent coordinating from the security office, shouting orders in Italian and English. Through it all, Samantha moved like a ghost, anticipating needs before they were voiced. She made sure coffee was always fresh, organized meals when people forgot to eat, kept Mrs. Brennan and the staff focused on their duties despite the chaos. Most importantly, she kept Luca's routine as normal as possible. She woke him at the same time every morning, made his breakfast, read to him, played games, shielded him from the tension that permeated every corner of the house. At night, she tucked him in and sang the lullaby that had become their ritual. The men noticed. More than once, Samantha caught them watching her move through the house with something like approval. Joseph Ricci nodded to her every time their paths crossed. The younger man from Brooklyn started calling her Miss Sam with genuine respect. Even Vincent, who rarely showed emotion, thanked her quietly when she brought him coffee during an all-night security review. Thursday morning arrived. Samantha woke at 4:30, unable to sleep. She found Anthony in his office, phone pressed to his ear, multiple screens showing live feeds from various locations. He looked up when she entered and gestured for her to sit. Understood. Proceed on my mark. He ended the call and checked his watch. 20 minutes. Can I stay? Samantha asked. Anthony hesitated, then nodded. If you want. They sat in silence, watching the screens. At exactly 5 a.m., everything happened at once. On 3 different feeds, SWAT teams poured into warehouses. The audio was muted, but Samantha could see the chaos. People being forced to the ground, hands zip-tied, evidence bags being filled. Philadelphia team reports 43 arrests, Vincent said from his position by the door. New Jersey has 37. Baltimore still clearing the building. Anthony's expression remained neutral. But Samantha saw his shoulders relax slightly. Casualties? None. Clean operation. Baltimore reports 51 arrests. Another voice crackled through the radio. Building secured. Evidence recovered. Anthony leaned back in his chair. It's done. Over the next 6 hours, reports flooded in. Over 100 cartel members arrested. Millions of dollars in product seized. The FBI holding press conferences, praising their intelligence gathering and coordination. The East Coast operation of the cartel de Sinaloa had been gutted, and somewhere in all of that, the representative who had ordered the attack on Anthony's family simply disappeared. No arrests, no news reports, just gone, as if he had never existed. By evening, the house had emptied. The allies had left. The staff had returned to normal duties. Luca was asleep upstairs, exhausted from pretending everything was normal, while sensing it absolutely wasn't. Samantha found herself in the garden as the sun set, staring up at the emerging stars. She heard footsteps behind her, but didn't turn. It's over, Anthony said quietly, coming to stand beside her. Is it really? The immediate threat? Yes. The cartel won't come back. They can't afford to. He was quiet for a moment. There will always be other threats. That's the world I live in. But this particular danger is finished. Samantha nodded, still looking at the stars. I shot a man. 3 days ago. I pulled a trigger and put a bullet in another human being. You protected my son. I know. I'd do it again. That's what scares me. She finally looked at him. I thought I'd feel guilty. Or traumatized. But mostly I just feel relieved that Luca is safe, that we're all safe. What does that make me? Human, Anthony said, and brave, and exactly the kind of person I want protecting my family. Your family. Yes. He moved to stand directly in front of her. I can't pretend anymore, Samantha. Can't pretend you're just staff. Can't pretend I haven't been falling for you since the day you dove into that pool. Can't pretend that watching you these past 2 days, taking care of Luca, organizing my house, standing strong when most people would have run, hasn't made me realize something I should have admitted weeks ago. Samantha's heart pounded. What? That I need you, not just as Luca's caretaker, not just as someone who keeps my house running. I need you. His hands came up to frame her face. And I'm terrified because everyone I've ever loved has been hurt or taken from me. But I can't fight this anymore. Anthony, let me finish. His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. You walked into my life by accident, saved my son, became the best thing that's happened to either of us in years. And somewhere along the way, you became essential. To him, to me, to everything. Samantha's eyes burned. I feel the same way. I didn't want to, didn't plan on it. But I can't imagine leaving now. Can't imagine not being here with you and Luca. Then don't leave. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Stay. Not as an employee. Stay as someone I can't live without. Yes, she breathed. Anthony closed the distance and kissed her. Slow and deep, his lips moving against hers with a tenderness that made her knees weak. She kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss held everything they hadn't said. Promises and hope, and the beginning of something neither of them had expected to find. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Anthony rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that for weeks. Me too, Samantha admitted. They stood there, wrapped in each other, until the stars fully emerged overhead. Then they walked back to the house hand in hand. Something fundamental shifted between them. The next morning, Samantha was making breakfast when Luca wandered into the kitchen, still in his pajamas. Anthony was already there, drinking coffee, and he smiled when his son appeared. Morning, buddy. Morning. Luca climbed into his usual chair, then stopped. His eyes moved between Samantha and Anthony, noting the way they stood closer than usual. The way Anthony's hand brushed Samantha's lower back as he moved past her to the refrigerator. Are you guys different now? Samantha and Anthony exchanged glances. Anthony set down his coffee and crouched beside Luca's chair. What do you mean? I mean, Luca's small face scrunched in concentration. Is Sam part of our family now? Like, for real? Not just because she works here? Anthony looked up at Samantha. She nodded slightly. He turned back to his son. If Sam wants to be, then yes. For real. Luca's face split into the biggest smile Samantha had ever seen. Do you want to, Sam? She moved closer, kneeling so she was at eye level with the boy who had changed her entire life. More than anything. Good. Luca threw his arms around both of them, pulling them into a clumsy three-way hug. I love you, Sam. Samantha's throat closed. I love you too, Luca. Over his head, her eyes met Anthony's. He mouthed the words silently. I love you. She mouthed them back, knowing they were true, knowing that everything that had brought her to this moment, the fear and the danger and the impossible choices, had led her exactly where she was meant to be, with a family she hadn't known she needed, with a man she hadn't planned on loving, with a future that finally felt possible. Nearly 7 months passed like a dream Samantha kept waiting to wake from, but never did. The mansion felt different now. Not because anything physical had changed, but because her place in it had transformed completely. She no longer moved through rooms like a shadow trying not to be noticed. She belonged here. In the halls. At the dinner table. In Anthony's life. It was early February, and Connecticut was buried under fresh snow. Samantha stood at the window of what had once been her guest room, but was now simply her room, watching Luca build a lopsided snowman with 2 of the guards who had decided helping a 6-year-old was more interesting than their patrol route. He's getting big. Anthony's voice came from behind her. She felt his arms wrap around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. His chin rested on her shoulder. Hard to believe he was 5 when you got here. Hard to believe I've been here almost 7 months. Samantha leaned into him, comfortable in a way she had never been with anyone. Feels like yesterday and forever at the same time. Any regrets? Not one. She turned in his arms to face him. You? Anthony's answer was a kiss, slow and thorough. The kind that still made her heart race even after months of stolen moments and shared nights. When he pulled back, his dark eyes held that look she had grown to recognize. The one that said he was about to say something important. I have a meeting in the city this afternoon. Come with me. Anthony, you know I hate those meetings. All those men in suits talking about things I barely understand. Not that kind of meeting. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I want to show you something. And there's someone you should meet. 2 hours later, they were in Anthony's SUV heading into Manhattan. Luca had been left with Mrs. Brennan, much to his disappointment, but Anthony had promised they would bring back his favorite cookies from the bakery on 5th Avenue. The city rose around them, all glass and steel and perpetual motion. Samantha had grown up in New York, but she had never experienced it from this angle, with drivers who navigated traffic like they owned the streets, with parking spots that magically appeared, with doors that opened before you reached them, because people recognized the man beside you. They stopped at a restaurant in Midtown, upscale but not pretentious. Anthony led her to a private table in the back, where a young woman with long brown hair and bright green eyes was already waiting. Ashley. Samantha broke into a genuine smile. Her sister stood and they embraced, holding each other tight. Oh my God, look at you. Ashley pulled back, taking in Samantha's appearance. Gone were the simple jeans and t-shirts. Today she wore tailored black pants and a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe used to. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup subtle, but polished. You look like you belong in a magazine. I look weird, Samantha said, self-conscious. You look happy, Ashley corrected. She glanced at Anthony, who stood back giving them space. And I'm guessing that has something to do with him. They sat, ordered food, and talked for over an hour. Ashley updated Samantha on college, on her classes, on the internship she had just landed at a marketing firm. Samantha told carefully edited versions of the past months, leaving out the dangerous parts, but sharing the important ones. How Luca had become like her own son, how the mansion had become home, how Anthony had become everything. I was worried at first, Ashley admitted, when Anthony excused himself to take a call. When you told me you were living with your boss. It sounded like one of those situations that ends badly. But seeing you now, She reached across the table and squeezed Samantha's hand. "I haven't seen you this happy since before Mom and Dad died." Samantha's eyes stung. "I didn't think I could be this happy again. Didn't think I deserved it." "You deserve everything good, Sam. Always have." Ashley smiled. "And if this guy makes you happy, then I like him. Even if he is kind of terrifying. He's not that bad once you get to know him," says the woman who jumped into a pool to save his kid. "You always were the brave one." After lunch, Anthony drove them to a building Samantha didn't recognize. High-rise, modern, overlooking Central Park. He led her through the lobby where the doorman greeted him by name, into an elevator that required a key to access the top floor. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that took Samantha's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the entire city. The space was open and bright, decorated in warm neutrals with touches of deep burgundy in the throw pillows and artwork. A fireplace dominated one wall. The kitchen was all marble and stainless steel. "Anthony, this is beautiful. Whose place is this?" "Mine. Well, ours, if you want it to be." He moved to the windows, looking out at the view. "I bought it 3 years ago. Used it maybe twice. Always felt too empty. Too lonely. But I thought," he turned to face her, "I thought maybe we could use it when we need to be in the city. When Luca is at a friend's house and we want time alone. When you want to visit Ashley without driving back to Connecticut late at night." Samantha walked through the space, running her fingers along the countertops, taking in every detail. "This is really ours? If you want it." Anthony pulled a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box. Something else. He opened it to reveal a key and 2 credit cards. "The key to this place. Cards in your name, connected to my accounts. No limits, no questions. Anthony, I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet." He moved closer, taking her hand. "What I'm asking is if you'll build a life with me. Officially. Not just as someone who lives in my house and takes care of my son. As my partner. In everything." Samantha stared at the box, at the physical representation of trust and commitment, and forever. "You're giving me keys and credit cards? I'm giving you access to everything I have, everything I am." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "I know I can't give you a normal life. I know my world is dangerous and complicated and sometimes dark. But I can give you honesty. I can give you security. I can give you everything I have and promise to protect what we're building. What about Luca? Luca loves you. More than I think either of us realized someone could love another person. You're already his mother in every way that matters. This just makes it official." Samantha looked up at him, at this man who had started as her intimidating boss and become her entire world. Yes, to all of it. The penthouse and the cards and building a life together. Yes. Anthony's smile was genuine and rare and beautiful. He kissed her there in the empty penthouse with the city spread out behind them. And Samantha felt something click into place. This was her future. Messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. Over the next months, life settled into a new rhythm. Samantha became a fixture at Anthony's side. Not just at home, but at events. Dinners with business associates where she quickly learned to navigate conversations about imports and exports without asking too many questions. Charity galas where women in designer gowns looked at her with barely concealed curiosity about who she was and where she had come from. At one such event in early March, she wore a burgundy pantsuit that Anthony had chosen specifically for her. The color brought out the warmth in her skin, and the cut was both elegant and powerful. She felt like a different person walking into the ballroom on Anthony's arm, confident, certain of her place. "That's her," she heard someone whisper as they passed. "The one who used to be his maid. I heard she saved his son. Twice. Still, you'd think he'd choose someone more suitable." Anthony's hand tightened on her lower back. He stopped walking and turned to face the group of women who had been whispering. His expression was cold enough to freeze blood. He didn't say a word. Didn't have to. The women went pale and immediately found somewhere else to be. "You okay?" he asked Samantha quietly. "I'm fine. They're not wrong. I was the maid. You were never just the maid. And anyone who can't see what you are now isn't worth our time." He led her further into the ballroom. "Besides, Half these people have worse secrets than hiring staff. Samantha laughed despite herself. That's probably true. Throughout the evening, she noticed something. The important people, the ones who actually mattered in Anthony's world, treated her with respect. Joseph Ricci sought her out to ask about Luca. Vincent nodded to her whenever their paths crossed. Even men she had never met before shook her hand and called her Miss Wells with genuine courtesy. She had earned her place here, not through connections or money or background, but through action, through loyalty, through loving a child who needed her and a man who had forgotten how to let anyone close. In April, they threw a small party for Luca's 6th birthday. Nothing extravagant, just family, and a few of his friends from the private school he attended. The house filled with the chaos of children running through rooms and adults trying to keep them from breaking anything valuable. Samantha organized everything with Mrs. Brennan's help. Decorations in Luca's favorite colors, a cake shaped like a dinosaur, games that kept 6-year-olds entertained without destroying the mansion. Anthony watched from the sidelines, a small smile on his face as his son laughed and played with an ease that would have been impossible a year ago. At one point, Luca gathered all the kids to show them a drawing he had made. It was simple, stick figures in crayon, but the meaning was clear. 3 people holding hands, one tall with dark hair, one smaller with messy hair, one in the middle, tiny, grinning. "That's my family," Luca announced proudly. "That's Papa and Sam and me." One of the other children asked, "Is Sam your mom?" Luca looked at Samantha, his brown eyes serious. "She's my Sam. That's better than a mom because I got to choose her." Samantha's throat closed. She knelt down and pulled Luca into a hug. "And I chose you too, kiddo. Best choice I ever made." After the party ended and the house quieted, Anthony found the drawing. He stood in his office, studying it with an expression Samantha couldn't read. She appeared in the doorway, watching him. "You okay? I'm thinking about where to hang this." He glanced up at her. "I'm thinking right there." He pointed to the wall behind his desk, the space where an expensive painting currently hung. "So everyone who comes into this office knows exactly what matters to me." He did exactly that. Took down the painting worth tens of thousands of dollars and replaced it with a crayon drawing by a 6-year-old. The first time Joseph Ricci saw it, he laughed so hard he had to sit down. "Only you would hang a kid's drawing in your office," Joseph said, wiping his eyes. "It's the most valuable thing I own," Anthony replied simply. By late May, Samantha had settled fully into her role. She wasn't staff anymore. She wasn't exactly Anthony's girlfriend either. She was something else. Something undefined, but essential. She managed the household when Anthony was occupied with business. She made decisions about Luca's schooling and activities. She attended meetings that affected the family. She had become, without anyone officially declaring it, the lady of the house. On a Friday evening, Anthony told her to pack a bag. They were spending the night in the city. Luca was having a sleepover at a friend's house, something that required 3 security guards, but was deemed worth it for the pure joy on his face. The penthouse felt different at night. The city lights turned the windows into a canvas of gold and silver. Anthony had arranged for dinner to be delivered, something from a restaurant Samantha had never heard of, but that probably had a year-long waiting list. They ate on the balcony, wrapped in blankets against the cool spring air. They talked about everything and nothing, about Luca's upcoming school performance, about Ashley's graduation in a few weeks, about plans for summer. Simple domestic conversations that felt impossibly precious. After dinner, Anthony stood and extended his hand. "Dance with me. There's no music, so we'll make our own." They swayed together on the balcony, the city humming below them, wrapped in each other in the night. Samantha rested her head on Anthony's chest, listening to his heartbeat, wondering how her life had become this. "I have something for you," Anthony said after a while. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Samantha's heart skipped. "Anthony, it's not what you think. Not yet." He opened the box. Inside was a key and 2 cards, similar to what he had given her months ago. But these were different. The key is to a safety deposit box. In it is everything you'd need if something happened to me. Money, instructions, contacts. The cards give you full access to accounts I've set up specifically for you and Luca. Not joint accounts. Yours. No one can touch them. No one can take them away. Why are you giving me this? Because I need to know you're protected. Always. No matter what. His hand came up to cup her face. I'm not proposing marriage because I want you to have the choice. About everything. If you want to leave tomorrow, you can. You'll be financially secure. You'll have everything you need. I never want you to feel trapped. Samantha's eyes burned. I don't want to leave. I know. But I need you to know you could. That you're choosing this. Choosing us. Every day. He closed the box and pressed it into her hand. These are yours. Your safety net. Your freedom. Anthony Pellegrini. Are you trying to give me the ability to leave you while simultaneously making me fall more in love with you? His smile was soft. Is it working? Unfortunately, yes. She wrapped her arms around his neck. You're either the smartest man I've ever met or the most foolish. Probably both. He kissed her, deep and slow. But I'm yours. Completely. If you'll have me. I already have you. Had you since that day by the pool when you grabbed my arm and told me I was never leaving. Best decision I ever made. They stayed on the balcony until the city quieted, until the sky began to lighten with approaching dawn. Then they moved inside, to the bedroom with its impossible views and soft sheets, and loved each other with a tenderness that came from absolute trust. Sunday afternoon, they picked up Luca from his sleepover. He was hyper from too much sugar and not enough sleep, chattering about everything he had done. When they arrived back at the mansion, he announced he wanted to swim in the pool. It's still too cold, buddy, Anthony said. Maybe in a few weeks. But I want to show Sam how good I am now. I've been practicing with my instructor. Samantha and Anthony exchanged glances. Neither of them had been to the pool since that day 7 months ago. The pool where everything had started. How about we go look at the pool? Samantha suggested. You can show me your swimming when it's warmer. The three of them walked through the gardens to the infinity pool. The water was clear and still, reflecting the afternoon sky. Luca ran to the edge, pointing out where he had fallen, explaining with the confidence of a 6-year-old how he definitely wouldn't fall in again, because he was much more careful now. Anthony and Samantha stood on the deck, hands linked, watching him. The same spot where Anthony had grabbed her arm all those months ago, where he had said she was never leaving, where everything had changed. You know what Luca told me yesterday? Anthony said quietly. He said he's glad he fell in the pool. Samantha looked at him, surprised. Really? He said if he hadn't fallen, Sam wouldn't be here, and having Sam is worth being scared for a little while. Anthony turned to face her fully. He's smarter than both of us. What do you mean? I spent 2 years being scared, of letting anyone close, of loving again, of risking loss. His hand came up to her face. Then you dove into that pool without hesitation. And I realized something. Being scared doesn't protect you from pain. It just stops you from having anything worth protecting. Anthony, you saved Luca that day. But you saved me too. From being alone. From being afraid. From forgetting that life is supposed to be more than just surviving. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for that. For all of it. For choosing us even when we were complicated and dangerous and definitely not what you signed up for. Samantha smiled, tears sliding down her cheeks. You're wrong about one thing. What's that? You saved me too. Gave me a family. Gave me purpose. Gave me a home. We saved each other. Papa! Sam! Come here! Luca was at the far end of the pool, waving frantically. I want to take a picture with both of you. They walked over, and Mrs. Brennan appeared with a camera, smiling indulgently. The three of them posed by the pool, Luca between them, everyone smiling. A family captured in a moment of perfect happiness. After the photo, Luca ran off to play with one of his toys. Anthony pulled Samantha close, wrapping his arms around her waist. They stood there watching the water, the place where their story had truly begun. I love you, Anthony said, more than I thought I could love anyone again. I love you too. Samantha leaned back against him. All of you. The dangerous parts and the gentle parts and everything in between. Think you can handle forever with us? I think forever sounds perfect. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the distance, Luca's laughter rang out. pure and joyful. The mansion stood solid behind them, no longer intimidating, but welcoming. Home. Samantha had walked through the door 7 months ago as a maid who needed a job. She had become a mother, a partner, and the center of a family that had forgotten how to be whole. She had found a place she belonged, with a man who had taught her that love was worth the risk, with a child who had taught her that family was about choice, not just blood. And it had all started with a splash, a rescue, and a declaration that had seemed crazy at the time, but turned out to be the truest thing ever spoken. "You're never leaving." She wasn't. Not now. Not ever. This was home. This was family. This was forever. And Samantha Wells wouldn't have it any other way.